Good morning, class. So, in the previous class, we talked about the structure of the male gametophyte and how it was formed. So, in today's class, we'll talk about the female gametophyte. But before going towards that, let's give a brief discussion on what we have studied in the previous class and only the important part we'll discuss. So, we talked about the pollen grains. As pollen grain is the first cell of a male gametophyte, it is utmost importance. Now, pollen grain is termed as immature male gametophyte. Why immature? Because it is not completely formed inside the anther, but the complete formation of the male gametophyte takes place in the female gametophyte. So that's why it is called an immature male gametophyte till it is not uh, transferred to the female gametophyte. So usually they are round in shape and the shape varies. Now, pollen grains are surrounded by two distinct layers, the exine and the intine. So, the exine, I told you, is a very much thick layer and is made up of sporopollen. So, sporopollen was a substance that was very hard and was found to be preserved for a very longer time, and that's the reason why pollen grains are found in the fossils. Then the inner layer was the intine. So, due to the presence of this sporopollen, so there are some places where the presence of sporopollen is not there, and that's why at some places the exine is ruptured or the exine is not present. So that's the place where only entine is visible and no exine is there. So through these places a germ tube arises. This is the germ tube, and this germ tube is very much helpful in the process of transfer of gametes as well as in the fertilization process. So the number of germ pore structure and ornamentation of the exine. This is the ornamentation. The spikes you can see, they are variable in different species of plants. So the number of germ pore in the structure as well as ornamentation of the exine is a significant feature in the study of taxonomy. So taxonomy is a very important branch. Then what are these pollen grains very much important in that study because they are of variable shapes and sizes as well as structure and ornamentation. That's why they are very much helpful in distinguishing one plant from another. And taxonomy is all about distinguishing and classification of the various plants into different categories. Now, on the basis of germ pore, there are different types of pollen grains. So, 3 Colpus type is a type of pollen grain where the slit type of germ pore present. Slit type is the that type of germ pore when the cut is in the longitudinal direction and it is present in the pollen grain of Capsula. So this type of germ pore is also called as tricolpate. Now, when only one germ pore is present, that is in the case of monocols, the pollen grain is called monocolpate. Then the plants in which pollination takes place by the insects, their pollen grains have some oily layer around the pollen grain. तो the plants जिनमें जो पॉलिनेशन होता है वो इंसेक्ट्स के थ्रू होता है कि उनके अराउंड एक स्टिकी सब्सटेंस होता है और उस स्टिकी सब्सटेंस बहुत ज़्यादा यूजफुल होता है क्योंकि it protects the pollen grain from the harmful substances, whatever the harmful UV rays is there. वो जो sticky substance है वो protect करता है and that sticky substance combined with the pollen grain is called as pollen kit. और वो it is very much brightly colored, mostly yellow in color, and that's for attracting the insects towards the pollen grain so that it is very helpful in the process of pollination. Now we'll talk about the dehiscence of anther. What is the dehiscence? In the diagram you can see the slowly opening of the walls and then these pollen grains are released from the anther walls. So let's discuss this. During the maturation of anther, there are various changes that are taking place in the walls of anther. So what are these changes? In the beginning, the middle layer degenerates. I told you there are 3 layers: the outermost layer, that is the epidermis, and the endodermis, middle layer, as well as the tapetum. So this middle layer gets degenerates after the tapetum has absorbed all the food, and now there are only 3 layers left. Not only the microspores are present in the pollen sacs, but there are some other bodies that are produced, that is the Ubish bodies. So what are the use of this? The UV bodies are usually participating in the formation of exine. That's why UV bodies are present, so that they help in the formation of exine. The exine, the outermost layer, and it is very much important for the pollen grains. That's why they are growing simultaneously with the microspores. Microspores are the pollen grains. When these pollen grains mature, the UV bodies also mature and form the exine. So now the mature anther have only two layers, the epidermis and the endothecium, because the tapetum has absorbed the middle layer. Now the sterile tissue are present between both the pollen sacs. Pollen sacs, these are the pollen sacs. Some sterile tissue are present in between these. See, you can see in the diagram, these are the sterile tissues, these are two pollen sacs. And after some time, this also generates and these both fuses together. Now there is no partition or no presence of any sterile tissue, and mostly the dehiscence of anther takes place during the dry season. Dry season means when there is very much less amount of water, and because this is the reason they are hygroscopic. Nature of the endothecium, which is responsible for the dehiscence of anther, it is hygroscopic in nature, and that's why it absorbs a lot of water, and during the dry condition there is no availability of water. That's why it ruptures out the pollen grains from its walls. The endothecium was elastic. I told you this elasticity is very much important in the opening, contraction, as well as relaxation. And this contraction and relaxation helps in the releasing out of the pollen grains through the walls of the epidermis. This is the epidermis, outermost layer. It gets ruptured and the pollen grains are released out. Now we'll discuss about this. You can see the diagram, the different types of the transfers. Means in this direction the adhesions will occur, the longitudinal in the vertical state, then this is the poricidal and valvular. This diagrammatic picture, you can see the opening, and these are the pollen grains that are being dehiscized or released. Now we'll talk about the microgametes or the development of male gametophyte. What is this? In the flowering plant, the pollen grains or the microspore considered as the first male gametophyte. Now, germination or the development of the pollen grain takes place before dehiscence of anther is whenever the germination or development of the pollen grains takes place before the dehiscence. If the dehiscence is not occurred and the pollen grows inside the anther only, so then this state is called as precautious development. Precautious means the pollen grains are getting developed without being even released out of the anther. And when the development of pollen takes place at the mother place, that is inside the pollen sac of anther, then it is called as in situ development. These are the two terms that are used on the basis of the where the development of the pollen is occurring. Now we'll talk about the pre-pollination development. In the beginning of the process, only nucleus of the pollen grain divide by unequal mitotic divisions. There are some unequal mitotic divisions in the beginning, and they result in two unequal size of nucleus. Then small nucleus, unequal means there is one small nucleus formed, and then one larger nucleus is formed. The small nucleus that is formed, it is present near the wall, and it is called as the degenerative nucleus, and the larger nucleus that is present in the cytoplasm, it is called as the vegetative nucleus. Now both the nucleus are surrounded by the cytoplasm, and it becomes dense. Dense means it gets thickened as the accumulation of the cytoplasm gets more and more. Then after, again followed by some unequal cytokinesis. Cytokinesis is not the division of nucleus but the division of the cytoplasm. Now first the division of the nucleus occurred, that was unequal. One large was formed and one small was formed. The larger one was the vegetative nucleus that was present in the cytoplasm, and the smaller one was a generative nucleus. It was present near the wall. Now after this has happened, then the cytoplasm got thickened, and then the cytokinesis has started to occur, and this cytokinesis results into two unequal size of cells. Now what happens, the larger cell is which is having larger nucleus is known as the vegetative cell, and the smaller cell which is having the smaller nucleus is called the generative cell. Now pollen grains come in bicelled and binucleated condition. Now we all know that bicelled means those cells have been formed, one larger, one smaller, and two nucleus also have been formed, one smaller and one larger. Now this is the bicelled as well as the binucleated condition. So in angiosperm, pollination of the pollen grains takes place in the bicelled and binucleate condition. Now this condition is achieved. This means that the plant is, or the pollen grains are mature enough to perform the uh, pollination, because they are now in that stage, the bicelled and the binucleate stage. The development of the gametophyte takes place inside the pollen grain, and it is also called as the endosporic development. This is the stage of pollen grain, and it is immature or as well as partially developed male gametophyte is formed. This is what the partially development of the male gametophyte. In the first line I told you that the bicell and binucleate stage is not the complete or not the mature form, but it is the immature form. The generative cell detach from the wall and change into vermiform or spindle-like structure, and this structure enters inside the vegetative cell. Now the generative cell that was smaller and formed separately, after some time it gets inside the vegetative cell or the larger cell. Now what happens about after the post pollination development? The rest of the further development of the pollen grain takes place on the stigma or the carpel after the pollination. What happens there? The pollens that are now transferred to the stigma or the carpel, they absorb moisture and the sugar content from the stigma. Due to this volume of internal contents of the cytoplasm increased, exerts some pressure on both the layers. As the pollen grain is now absorbing the water as well as the sugar from the stigma, it is getting more and more thickened and more soiled up, and this soiling is exerting some pressure on both the layers, that is the exine as well as the intine. Because of this pressure, the intine comes out through any germ pore in the form of tube, and this is the pollen tube. The intine comes out from those part where there is no exine, because exine is very hard, that's why it do not allow the tube to form. But there are some places, the germ pores, where there is no presence of exine. From that parts the pollen tube is formed. Now first of all, the vegetative nucleus enter into the pollen tube and assumes the terminal position, that is the most position. It is occupied by the vegetative nucleus of the pollen tube. This spindle shaped generative cell now enter into the pollen tube. After the vegetative cell has occupied a terminal position, afterwards then the generative cell also enters the pollen tube. Now what happens inside the pollen tube? The generative cell divides mitotically and form are two non-motile male gametes. Now the generative cell keeps on dividing mitotically, and this mitotic division gives rise to two non-motile male gametes. Now the male gametophyte comes in the three cell structure, in which one is the vegetative cell and two are the male gametes that are formed. Two male gametes are formed from the generative cell. This three cell stage represents the mature male gametophyte of angiosperm. Now the gametophyte is mature, and male gametophyte is highly reduced and completely depends upon the sporophyte. Now we'll talk about these are the diagrammatic representation of what I told you, the post-pollination events, that the complete development of the male gametophyte. Now we'll talk about first of all we'll talk about pistil or the gynoecium. What is it? Gynoecium is the female reproductive organ. The free unit of gynoecium is called as a pistil or a carpel. The carpel, also known as the megasporophyll, the carpel is differentiated into three distinct regions. What are these three distinct regions? The diagram you can see the stigma, the style, and the ovaries. So these three structures are very important for the purpose of fertilization. The free end of the carpel, which receives pollen grains, is called stigma. This is the part which receives the pollen grains. A long narrow tubular structure present in between the stigma and the ovary, it is the style. And the basal soilent part of the carpel, it is called the ovary. The ovule is also known as the megasporangia, which are borne on a cushion like tissues called the placenta in the ovary. Inside the ovary there are placenta present, and on those placenta the there is the presence of ovules. So ovules are trapped inside the ovary. One or more than one ovules are present inside the ovary. So on the basis of the number of ovules present inside the ovary, the ovaries are of. Now what happens in the gynoecium of capsula? The capsula is bicarpellary, that is having two carpels. These are the carpels and they are present two in number. Then syncarpals. Syncarpal means they are fused together. Unlike these are apocarpals, which are three different and there is no fusion, but syncarpals means they are fused together. Then it becomes it is unilocular by nature, but sometimes it becomes bilocular. These are the locules. These three represents the locules, and these become bilocular when a false septum is developed here, and then they become only two. Then we'll talk about the structure of the ovule or the megasporangium. So this is in the diagram, you can see what a typical ovule looks like. It is a ridge or a stalk-like outgrowth, and it is formed from the placenta. The placenta, it was present inside the ovary. Then each ovule is attached to the placenta by means of a thin stalk called as funicle or funiculus. This is the funiculus through which the ovule is attached to the placenta. The point of attachment of funicle with the ovule is called hilum. Then the main region of the ovule is composed by mass of parenchymatous cell or nucellus. This is the nucellus, and it is the parenchymatous tissue are present here. That is not shown in the diagram, but wherever the plain structure you can see, they are all occupied by some tissues. Then nucellus is the main part of the ovule, and nucellus is covered by one or two pores called the integument. So this is the outer integument and this is the inner integument. In some, only one integument is present. In most of the ovule, funicle is attached to the main body of the ovule for some distance to form a ridge-like structure called as raphe. So this funiculum is sometimes uh, attached to the main body at some distance, and this distant part of the funiculus which is attaching to the main body of the ovule, it is called as raphe, and it is not present in every angiosperm. It is sometimes absent also. So the vascular tissues are present inside the funiculus with supply of food material from placenta. This is having the supply of the food, and this supply of the food is by the placenta, and this placenta is providing food to the ovule by the help of this funiculus, which are having some supplies for vascular tissues for the supply of the food material to be done for the maturation of the ovule. Now the placenta is a cushion-like structure to which the ovules are attached. Inside the cavity of the placenta, the placentation is of different types. There are different types of placentation. The marginal placentation. In marginal, the ovary is simple, unilocular, and the ovules are arranged along the margin of the unilocular ovary. Then there is the axial placentation, free central placentation. Free central means the gynoecium is polycarpellary and it is syncarpous. Then parietal presentation, the ovary is usually one chamber, but in some cases it becomes bilocular due to the formation of the false septum. In the case of capsula, we have seen that. Then we'll talk about the development of this megasporogenesis or the development of the female gametophyte. So how does megagametogenesis or megasporogenesis takes place? There are some very important steps that are very much different from the male gametophyte, as the structure of the male gametophyte as well as female gametophyte is very different. And once the female gametophyte is mature, there will be the formation or the fusion of the male and female gametes, and that will lead to the fertilization. So how the development occurs? The ovule arises as a small mound of the homogeneous tissue on the inner wall of the ovary. I told you where the ovules are present. So the different types of ovule are present on the basis of the position of the micropyle. So there are some the two very important ends, the micropylar end and the nucellar end. On the basis of these two, the ovule are of many different types. So the megasporogenesis. In the micropylar end, this is the micropylar end, we can see the micropylar end. Region of the nucellus, usually a single hypodermal cells get differentiated. So I was talking about the cells. These kind of cells are present everywhere in the ovule. There is somewhere single hypodermal cells present, and these get differentiated from other cells, and when the cells are differentiated, they form the primary archisporial cell. So these are some single layered cell, and they become differentiated. Some cells become differentiated on their own. There is no special mechanism for this differentiation, and these, once they get differentiated, they are now called as the primary archisporial cell. Now it contains a big nucleus in them, a dense cytoplasm, and has a larger size. Then what happens? These cells divide periclinically. Periclinically means one upon another. This division occurs in between from here, and then the formation of primary parietal cell and primary sporogenous cell occurs. Then the primary parietal cell may either remain undivided or undergoes a few periclinal and anticlinal divisions, so that the sporogenous cell gets embedded into the new cellular mass. Now some periclinal, this is the periclinal division, and this is the anticlinal division. So some of these divisions takes place, so that this cell gets very much embedded, means get inside the nucellar mass. And what happens next, that the consequently the sporogenous cell becomes subhypodermal. Now these are no more hypodermal, means not present here, they become the subhypodermal, means present below the hypodermis in position. So ovules with such a hypodermal sporogenous cell are called as the crassinucleate. So the term is used for those cells that are now present in the subhypodermal condition, that is crassinucleate. The sporogenous cells now act as megaspore mother cell. Now they have started to function as the megaspore mother cells. It undergoes meiosis and forms 4 haploid cells. These 4 haploid cells are formed, and these are formed in the linear tetrad. Linear tetrad means one upon another and 4 in number. So these are forming a linear tetrad, and these are now called the sporogenous mother cell. Now in most of the angiosperms, out of these 4 megaspores, 3 get degenerate. So these 3 upper 3 get degenerate. It is not important that only upper 3 will get degenerate, sometimes below lower 3s also can get degenerate. So these are degenerating cells, and only one functional megaspore is left. These 3 degenerate cells now provide more nourishment to the remaining one. This is the remaining one, and these two, after degenerating, provide the nourishment to this, and that's why it grows larger in size. The functional megaspore commonly present towards the chalazal end. The chalaza, you must have noticed here. At this end, mostly there is the presence of the very much functional megaspore. So now thus only one megaspore remains in ovule. This gives rise to the female gametophyte on development. This is how the development of the female gametophyte occurs. Now such female gametophyte, or the embryo sac, which develops from single megaspore, is called as monosporic embryo sac, or the polygonum type of embryo sac. A megaspore is a haploid structure and represents the first cell of female gametophyte. It develops to form fully mature female gametophyte. Now this is the first cell of the female gametophyte, and this grows on further to form the female gametophyte. So now we'll talk about the formation of the female gametophyte. The female gametophyte is also called as the embryo sac. It develops from the functional megaspore. There are great variations in the development of the embryo sac, such as monosporic. Some others are bisporic, means having 2 spores, and rest are tetrasporic. Then the remaining megaspore in the ovule is given sufficient nourishment so that it becomes larger in the size. The megaspore now divides 3 successive divisions. That one megaspore that it was formed, it goes further and further divisions, and after 3 successive divisions, it forms 8 nuclei. After every division, 2 nuclei are formed, and that's why it gives rise to final 8 nuclei, and all these nuclei are haploid. So one thing keep in mind, that after every meiosis, the cell that will be formed will always be haploid. So the haploid megaspore that will be produced are 2 nuclei, then 4 nuclei, and then 8 nuclei. Out of these 8 nuclei, the 3 nuclei are present at the micropylar end, and these undergo cytokinesis. And cytokinesis, they form the cell membrane and also form the egg apparatus. The egg apparatus contains 2 synergates as well as one egg cell. The egg cell represents the female gametophyte. The synergates, the central egg cell, and this represents the female gametophyte. Now, other than 3 nuclei at the chalazal end also undergoes cytokinesis, and then it forms the antipodals. Last, these antipodals are formed. First, these synergates are formed, then these central egg cell are formed, finally the antipodals are formed. Antipodals are formed by the regular cytokinesis, that is the division of the cytoplasm. Now, remaining 2 nuclei present in the center, they are called as the central or the polar nuclei or definitive nuclei. So this entire structure is called the embryo sac. Now we have a complete embryo sac formed, which represents the mature female gametophyte. Thus, normally it contains 3 plus 2 plus 3 arrangement of the cells in a typical embryo sac. These 3 antipodals, 3 plus 3 means these 3 synergates, which is 2 synergates and 1 is the egg. Now, and 3 plus 3 now plus 2 is the central cell, that is the polar nuclei. So the mature female gametophyte consists of 8 nuclei but only 7 cells. Why only 7 cells? Because one egg cell, 2 synergates, and 3 antipodal cells, and one remaining cell in which 2 polar nuclei are present, or one secondary. So this polar nuclei contains only one cell. They are having only one cell, but they contains 2 nucleus. That's why we call it the condition 8 cell as well as 8 nuclei as well as 7 cell condition. So now we'll talk about further. Now we have completed the formation of the male gametophyte, formation of the female gametophyte. Now how the transfer occurs, that is the pollination. So what is pollination? Pollination in the basic definition is defined as the transfer of the male gametophyte to the female gametophyte, and what happens there, the fusion of the male and female gametophyte, and then the fertilization occur. So what are the different types as well as forms of this pollination? The pollination is of two types, the self pollination and cross pollination. So in self pollination, the development of the male and female gametophyte occurs on the same plant, that is the, these are called the hermaphrodite plant, which have both the male and female reproductive parts. So transfer of the pollen from anther of a flower to the stigma of the same flower is called as self pollination. And the self pollination can be of two types, the autogamy and geitonogamy. So what happens in the autogamy? It is a type of self pollination that is found only in the bisexual flower. In this case, the stigma of a flower is pollinated by its own pollen. And therefore, autogamy also occurs by three different methods, the homogamy. In homogamy, the anthers and the stigmas of open flowers are brought together by growth, bending, or the folding. This happens in the mirabilis as well as catharanthus. Now, cleistogamy is another form by which the autogamy occurs. In cleistogamy, the pollination occurs when the lures remain closed during the pollination process. That is, the flower that are present in the lower position, they remain closed. The stigma receives only the pollen of its own flower, and the cross pollination is not possible because the flowers remain closed if any other uh, pollen comes from any other flower and opens for its flower only. That is the closed condition, is called the cleistogamy. Then what is geitonogamy? In this type of pollination, the pollen grains of one flower are transferred to the stigma of another flower of the same plant. The plant remains same, but the flower changes. So this is what geitonogamy is. This is also a type of self-pollination only, but only the difference is that the flower changes, but the plant remains same. What are the advantages of pollination? It maintains, these are the advantages of self-pollination. It maintains the purity of the species by preserving all the parental characters, as there is no mixing of the species, as the plant remains same. There will be no mixing and the parental characters will remain preserved. It is used to obtain pure line characters during breeding experiments. Then plants does not have to be dependent on the pollinating agencies. What are the pollinating agencies? They are in the cross pollination. Various agencies are required, like for example insects can be helpful in the transfer of pollen grains. Then the bats are also used in the process of pollen grains. Some higher plants, some higher animals are also used, like even elephant participates in the process of pollination. So in the case of self pollination, no such agencies are required. So self pollination strengthens the better characters of the plant. It also have some disadvantages, that it does not eliminate the bad characters from the race. Then the immunity to the diseases also decreases, as there will be no hybrid vigor. What is hybrid vigor? That there will be no increase of the variation in the plant, that will lead to decrease in the power of its resistance, and the immunity of the plant will keep on decreasing, and ability to adapt to the environment will also decrease, because there will be no variation again. So now we'll talk about the cross pollination. The cross pollination is also called as the allogamy. So in the cross pollination, the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of the flower of one plant to the stigma of the flower of another plant by the help of agent, and this is called as cross pollination. In the diagram you can see it is done by the insect, the honeybee. So agent can also be living, that is biotic, or as well as the abiotic component, the non-living. It is commonly seen in the dioecious plant, but very rarely in the monoecious. So dioecious are those which do not have the male and female gametes in the same plant. It is highly advantageous than the self-pollination, mainly in the formation of new genotypes. So what are the different types of the pollination that are cross-pollination? The pollination by wind, it is called as the anemophily. The pollination by water, it occurs in those plants which are present in the aquatic conditions. For example, hydrilla. Hydrilla is a plant in which Hydrilla vallisneria. These are the plants which have cross-pollination and by the agency, that is water. So it is called hydrophily. Cross pollination by the living agents, for example, pollination by insect, it is known as entomophily. For example, in salvia and ficus. Pollination by bird is known as ornithophily. While pollination by animal is known as zoophily. Pollination by snail is called malacophily. Pollination by bat is called chirapterophily. And pollination by an ant is called as myrmecophily. Now, this is how the pollination, that is the transfer of the stigma, the pollen occurs to the stigma. And after the pollen has reached the stigma, then afterwards occurs the process of fertilization. The we have both mature female as well as male gametophytes, and also the male gametophytes has reached the its point where it has to be reached. That was the that was the stigma. Now, how the fertilization occurs. Fertilization in angiosperm is unique. It is called as the double fertilization. Why the double fertilization? Because there are two sperms per pollen tube. In pollen tube, I told you there were two sperms. The two nucleus represent the generative as well as the vegetative. So one of the sperms fertilizes the egg cell to form zygote, and the remaining sperm fertilizes two polar nuclei, resulting in the formation of a triploid endosperm. So the endosperm is triploid. That is it because it fuses with the egg cell, and egg cell was diploid, and one sperm cell N, the egg cell 2N, and these both three combines and forms the triploid endosperm. So it is a unique condition. Now, the phenomenon of fertilization, this was reported first by the Strasburger in the plant Monotrapa, and this is the reason why the pollination or why the fertilization in the angiosperm is considered to be very significant, because it leads to the uh, it, double fertilization. A double fertilization event is a very rare event that is not seen in any other, even lower, not nor in lower as well as nor in any higher plants. And in double fertilization, both the male are present in the pollen tube and utilizes their these are both utilized in the process of fertilization, and because of this, there is no chance of any wastage. So the phenomenon of the male gametes brought to the female gamete, and there the fusion occurring on the stigma part. Thereafter the stigma uh, taking that nucleus down to towards the embryo sac, and then further on the fertilization event goes on. This process is called as the siphonogamy. So now we have double fertilization. Double fertilization, two types of fertilization occurred there: the formation of endosperm as well as the formation of embryo. But it is not always that the pollination has also some problems. It is not true that always the pollen that is reaching the stigma has the efficiency to fertilize that stigma, or to have compatibility with the stigma. So now what is incompatibility? The term itself means that the pollen that is going to the stigma is not compatible, or is not suitable to bring about the uh, fusion in the sigma. So pollination does not guarantee the transfer of the right type of pollen, that is compatible pollen of the same species. If the same species pollen is reaching, then it is not very much necessary that the pollination will occur. Often pollination of the wrong type, either from other species or from the same plant, is termed as incompatible pollination. The pistil has the ability to recognize the pollen. This is the pistil. The one single part of the gynoecium is called pistil, and it has the ability to recognize. So these are the pollen. It is reaching the stigma. We are able to fertilize. Now again, this is another pollen, and the same pollen is reaching this stigma also. But now this stigma is not appropriate for this pollen, but it is appropriate for this pollen. Now this is referring to as incompatibility. This is the incompatible pollen, and it is not able to fuse the stigma. Then again, this stigma is incompatible for both these pollens. So this is the term incompatibility. Only the right of the pistil accepts the pollen and promotes post-pollination events. If there is no uh, right pollination or compatible pollination, the post pollination events that leads to fertilization will not occur. The pistil rejects the pollen by preventing pollen germination on the stigma or the pollen tube growth in the style. The pollen tube now will not grow into the style, and that's why no pollination. The ability of the pistil to recognize the pollen is followed by its acceptance or rejection, is the result of a continuous dialogue between pollen grain and the pistil. The pollen grain and pistil are having some specific elements, enzymes, that are responsible for this recognition. So this was the fertilization. Now fertilization also occurred, and they are, what are the chances of fertilization not occurring? Then what is the seed? After fertilization, the seed is formed. So what is the seed? In angiosperm, the seed is the final product of sexual reproduction. It is often described as a fertilized ovule. Seeds are formed inside the fruits. A seed typically consists of a seed coat, then cotyledons, as well as embryo axis. The cotyledons of the embryo are simple structures, and they are generally thick, swollen due to storage food. So there are two types of mature seeds, that can be albuminous and non-albuminous. So what is the albuminous? The albuminous are those which have the residual endosperm in that. Endosperm was the 3N condition that was formed after double fertilization, and if it is present, then that seed is albuminous, and if that condition is absent, then it is the non-albuminous seed. And now the seed does not undergo or does not start to mature as it gets formed, but it takes some time, and that time of inactivity is called dormancy of the seed. For some time the seed remains dormant, and after some time it starts to produce the plumule, that is the first unit of the stem, then the radicle, that is the first unit of root, and later on the full complete plant grows from that seed. The seed forms the fruit, and there are some special cases also where the polyembryony occurs. Now what is polyembryony? Production of more than one embryo. The occurrence of more than one embryo in a seed is called as polyembryony. So polyembryony occurs in the case of lilium is shown when the uh, synergate. The synergate was the tissue that was not responsible for for fertilization, but in some cases it gets the ability to participate in the process of fertilization, and when it also participates in the process of fertilization, then there will be production of more and more embryos, and this will lead to the formation of many embryos. This is called polyembryony. Means many, and embryo means the product that is formed after the fertilization. So polyembryony is occurred when many embryos are formed by the unfertilized cells that were not used in fertilization, but they have developed some ability to participate in the process of fertilization. That's why they have formed many embryos. So this was all for the reproduction in plants. In next class we'll discuss reproduction in animals, or specifically human beings.